Welcome to The Beat. I'm Jason Johnson in for Ari Melber. We begin tonight with a victory of sorts for free speech as late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel returns to the airwaves in just a couple hours. Just days after Disney announced that he was suspended indefinitely, reports say Kimmel plans to address the controversy tonight in his opening monologue, his first public comments about the ordeal. Fellow late-night host Stephen Colbert was celebrating Kimmel's return.
Wonderful news for my dear friend Jimmy and his amazing staff. Once more, I am the only martyr in late night. Wait, unless CBS, you want to announce anything? Still no? Right, because the money thing, I forgot. Yeah, the money thing. Yeah.
Colbert, also a frequent Trump critic, poking fun at his own demise. His show is in its final season. But this free speech crisis is far from over, as Trump allies and MAGA fans are furious over Jimmy Kimmel's return. The LA Times noting, quote, Disney wanted to be done with politics, but politics wasn't done with Disney. It never is. The backlash now coming from the right as Trump rages against anyone who criticizes him.
All they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that. 97% of the stories are bad about a person. That's no longer free speech. They'll take a great story and they'll make it bad. See, I think that's really illegal.
Yeah, fact check, that's false. The ability to critique the government and the president is a constitutional guarantee. That's why it's the First Amendment. But the Constitution doesn't stop private companies from stepping in. Nexstar and Sinclair, who own dozens of ABC stations nationwide, have announced they will continue to preempt Kimmel, effectively blocking 1 in 5 Americans from hearing what he has to say when he returns tonight. This kind of corporate media consolidation can pose a risk, as companies seeking to curry favor with Trump can effectively censor what millions of Americans get to see and hear. The move to consolidate more apparent considering this. A host of MAGA-friendly billionaires already control various social media, cable, and broadcast news sources, and they're attempting to acquire more as they vie for administration approval to swallow up additional outlets. Joining me now to discuss is David Litt, former speechwriter for President Obama and author of It's Only Drowning, the true story of learning to surf and the search for common ground, and Tara Setmayer, co-founder and CEO of the Seneca Project and author of Uncompromised on Substack. David, I'll start with you, because the subtitle of your book is Attempting to Find Common Ground. That is a laudable goal. Most of us would like to see common ground. But it seems like what we're seeing right now from this administration is shutting down any voices of opposition. What's your response just to finding out that Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air? Is that success for free speech, or is it just the market pushing back against the government?
Well, Jason and Tara, first of all, it's good to see you both. And to answer your question, I would say this is both of the things you described. This is a big win for free speech, and it's the market pushing back on Disney. Trump and the FCC thought that Disney would cave. They were right. But consumers didn't cave, and other celebrities and comedians didn't cave. And because of that, you see Kimmel back on the air. And so I do think you brought up this notion of common ground. I don't think that Donald Trump and I are going to find common ground on the meaning of the First Amendment because he doesn't understand what it says. But I do think that you saw a surprising amount of common ground on free speech. To his credit, which is something I never thought I'd say about Ted Cruz, Ted Cruz criticized the FCC's role here. So did Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz. So it's not like you saw a groundswell of MAGA support for Jimmy Kimmel, but you did see some surprising bedfellows on this one.
Tara, you know, one of the things that I think is concerning about the financial and political background of this is that Nexstar and Sinclair and a lot of these organizations are pushing the FCC to raise the cap, right? The current cap is any media company is never supposed to be able to get more than 39% of the U.S. population. They're hoping to move that to 80 or eliminate the cap entirely. What's the danger if companies like Sinclair or companies like Nexstar, what's the danger if they're able to just control as many affiliates as they want across the country to the American people?
Well, it's controlling the narrative. It's controlling the information that people consume. And that's the reason why we have antitrust laws against monopolies in all different sectors of our economy. And that's why the FCC exists. I mean, we need to understand something here that, Sinclair is a Trump-supported company. So is Nexstar. Like they have a $6 billion merger that has to get approved by the FCC. So once again, Donald Trump and his MAGA minions that are in government, his lackeys that he's placed there, are doing exactly what he put them there to do, which is to weaponize government against his political opponents and to squash political dissent. I mean, Brendan Carr was an architect of the Project 2025 section about the FCC. So people need to, when we put this all in its totality and you see what you're doing, this attack against political dissent, against Trump's, perceived political opponents, it's all to control the flow of information and the propaganda and the lies that Donald Trump and MAGA perpetrate without pushback. Truth is under assault, as well as our free speech. And it's against a fundamental hallmark. James Madison is spinning in his grave.
Amongst other things, yes. David, I want to play you some sound from Jon Stewart last night when he was talking about Disney's monopoly and get your thoughts on the other side.
Wasn't it interesting to try and figure out all the tentacles Disney has in your daily life? It's one thing to swear off cruises, but the Avengers? Nah. How is it possible that by getting rid of one company, I can't watch Winnie the Pooh or Monday Night Football? Or listen to early Hillary Duff?
David, one of the things that's most concerning to me about what we've seen over these last couple of weeks is that it's a reminder that I think both Republicans and Democrats have been at fault. We've seen 25 years of mergers and the lessening and breaking down of rules and laws. What do you think should be the Democrats' perspective going forward? Because as long as these oligarchs and media monopolies keep growing, we're going to see more of this. What should Democrats be saying right now?
Well, first of all, I would be saying, if anybody happens to be watching this and is a multi-billionaire who is a Democrat, buy some TV stations. I hear that's useful to spread your political agenda. But the other thing, and I think this is the more important point, is that you shouldn't have to do that in order to have free speech and debate and comedians allowed to criticize the president or make fun of the president. I think when you're looking at here is, and it's in media, but it's in all kinds of different areas, this consolidation. And to a large extent, Americans were okay with it because we didn't see some of the worst consequences coming to pass. So I think in a strange way, I don't think any of this is good, but I do think that it's the mask is off and the consequences, the effects of this consolidation, because ultimately this is not, these decisions are not being made by some corporate entity or even by a majority vote of some kind. It's just a couple of people. And the graphic you showed earlier, we could get to a place where it's just 4 or 5 people making the major decisions about what we can say and what we can hear. And that's a different kind of threat against free speech. It's not necessarily covered by the First Amendment in every case, but it's deeply antithetical to the spirit of the First Amendment, which is essential to the spirit of the country.
Tara, for a long time, we were sort of under the impression that these, even if they were conservative leaders of these media companies, they were primarily concerned about the market, right? The market pushed back. People were threatening to boycott Disney. They were ending their Disney Plus licenses. So the market is going to hold some of these ideologues back. But what we're seeing now is people willing to make decisions that aren't financially wise for ideological reasons. Elon Musk is willing to lose money just so that he can do a catch and kill on Twitter. You have things happening in other different kinds of networks that are ideologically not financially driven. Within the conservative movement, within Republicans, how can they fight back about this? Because these are not market forces operating here. This is ideology, and they were supposed to be the party of market forces.
Right. Well, there's a lot of things that Republicans are supposed to be the party of that they are no longer, which is why I'm not in it. And a lot of other people don't recognize today's Republican Party. This isn't Ronald Reagan's Republican Party anymore. And this is another example of that. The idea that capitalism should have been the answer to cancel culture, which is something that conservatives were very upset about years ago. And some could argue went too far in some areas. OK, fine. But this boomerang effect here, now what they're doing, they're literally crossing the line into areas that are straight authoritarian. There's nothing democratic about this. There's nothing capitalist about this from the perspective of how Republican businesses and companies are handling this. The fact that it is so ideologically driven is, I think, what is more, which is different. That's what's different about the environment we're in now. And for some people, it's in apocalyptic holy war terms. So not even the Constitution is something that they will follow as their guide here, as the guardrail. So we have to really fight back against this, because there are more of us than there are of them. And the reaction by Disney to Jimmy Kimmel and reinstating him is a win for the American people. It is the righteous anger of the American people can push back against this. And this is an example of that. But it's just a battle. There is a larger war here that we're fighting, that everyone needs to wake up and recognize what we're up against here. You've got to know the enemy you're up against. And that's, I think, where we have to start and make sure that we're unified on it. We cannot let them get away with trying to gaslight us that somehow we're the problem.
And there's a huge difference, even for the people who complain on the right. There's a huge difference between a bunch of people saying, I don't like your offensive jokes anymore, you need to improve your material, and the federal government coming in and saying, I don't like your jokes, I'm going to snatch your license. We're running up on a break here. I got to say this really quick. I want to play some quick sound from Clay Travis on Fox and get your thoughts on this, David, real quick.
I think the Trump administration needs to look aggressively at that potential acquisition of the NFL Network and say, wait a minute, is Disney/ABC really trying to speak to all of America? If they won't do it on a late night show, will they do it with sports? I think that's real questions that deserve to be asked.
David, should the FCC be stopping anybody from buying the NFL?
A, no. And B, you hear these people talk, it's like they all saw gangster movies and are like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. They all sound like thugs.
Makes absolutely no sense.
Market forces allow for independent media, which is why you're seeing an explosion of that as well. So if you want to see capitalism still alive, that's where it is.
David Litt and Tara Setmayer, I could talk to you guys about this all night. Thanks so much for starting us off on The Beat tonight.